The following cases tell the tales of the most evil children and the insane crimes they committed. January 19, 2013 started like any other in Oakville, New Mexico, but something shocking was brewing in the quiet home of Griego household. Age 15 at the time, Nehemiah Griego opened fire on his parents and 3 siblings at their South Valley, New Mexico home near Albuquerque. Griego started by shooting his mother at midnight with a .22 rifle. When Zephaniah, his younger brother, woke up, Griego told him that he had killed their mother. Nehemiah switched on the lights for him to see their mother's dead body. Zephaniah started screaming, prompting Griego to kill him with the same rifle. His sisters, who had woken due to the loud gunshots, were crying in their bedroom down the hall, and Nehemiah went and killed them too. Griego then walked downstairs to wait for his father, who was working at a homeless shelter, get home. When he arrived about 5 in the morning, Griego shot his father several times using an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle, killing him. The teen then drove to the church with the murder weapons in the back. When asked where his family was, Griego told the pastor that his family had died during an attack at their home. Griego was driven back to the house by the pastor and another congregant, a retired homicide detective. But as they were driving, the retired detective sensed something was off and called 911. Griego later modified his version of what happened and told police in a statement that he'd been thinking about killing himself or someone else. He claimed that he had taken the firearms out of his parents' closet and that his father had purchased them, and that he had trained his mother and him how to use them. He also sent his girlfriend a picture of his dead mother via email. He further disclosed that his plan had been to escape, kill more people, then have himself shot to death in a police shootout. But how had it all gotten to this? Let's have a look at his background and childhood. Nehemiah was born into a Christian family in Albuquerque, New Mexico on March 20th, 1997. He was the 7th of 10 children. By all accounts, Nehemiah was the envy of other parents. He was a talented musician and athlete who was happy and involved in church youth groups. Every Sunday, his family attended the church where he helped. The family served as missionaries and conducted rescue operations in New Mexico. Like his father Greg, Nehemiah desired to serve in the military. Greg was well known in the South Valley of Albuquerque where they lived. However, Greg was also coming out of a challenging past. He served a long stint in prison for his involvement in gang and drug activities before joining the military. He was also divorced from his first wife. It was during his prison term that Greg experienced a profound spiritual awakening that eventually inspired him to accept a position as a pastor at Calvary Chapel in his community. In addition, after his release, he worked as a veteran advocate in the jail, a counselor for problematic teenagers held at the Metropolitan Detention Center, and a chaplain for the Albuquerque Fire Department. By January 2013, Greg was also working the graveyard shift at a local homeless shelter. It seemed like helping people was his life's mission. Without a doubt, Greg's change was influenced in part by his second wife, Sarah. Sarah, who was married in 1994, was a devout Christian who taught homeschooling and actively participated in Calvary Chapel Spanish and jail ministry. She appeared to be a devoted mother. Despite appearing to be a normal, happy family, the Griego family home, though, wasn't exactly a bed of roses. Although Nehemiah possessed certain gifted qualities, experts who assessed him maintained that during his early years, he experienced such intense trauma that an MRI scan revealed signs of physical abuse. In fact, attorneys representing Nehemiah would claim that due to his parents' ongoing physical and psychological abuse, Nehemiah had a decreased mental capacity and may even have had schizophrenia. The cause of all this was the never-ending conflict between Greg and Sarah, Nehemiah's parents, which spilled over to their children. These parents enforced a strict routine that kept the children indoors most of the time, preventing them from making friends outside of church, and kept Nehemiah away from social events. On January 28, 2013, Nehemiah was sent to bed early, following a furious argument with his mother. His mother most likely continued to discipline him by grounding him. And if the story that she barred her children from leaving the house at night is true, it may help to explain why Nehemiah was becoming more and more angry. At around midnight, a furious Nehemiah, unable to sleep, discreetly left his room and committed the crimes. Griego was considered a minor at the time of the crime, being 15 years old. Adolescents accused of first-degree murder in New Mexico must face adult proceedings. Nonetheless, a minor who commits a crime cannot be executed or given a life sentence without the possibility of parole. During the trial, an air of shock and dismay pervaded the courtroom as the specifics of the crime were revealed. The prosecution portrayed Nehemiah as a cold-blooded killer who acted with premeditation and intent, while Griego's defense claimed that his actions were the result of his difficult background and mental health issues. The sheriff's office claimed that Griego had been planning the murders for days. October 2015, Griego entered a plea of guilty to 3 counts of child abuse resulting in death and 2 counts of second-degree murder. On February 11, 2016, Judge John J. Romero of New Mexico Children's Court ruled that, based on mental health assessments, Griego was amenable to treatment and would receive a juvenile sentence. This meant that Griego, who was 18 at the time, would probably be allowed to leave a juvenile prison center after turning 21. Stunned, the state prosecution filed an appeal. In January 2018, convinced that Nehemiah was unfit for release to the public, State Attorney General Hector Balderas appealed Romero's decision to the state appellate court. Just 2 weeks prior to his release, in March of 2018, the district court's decision was overturned by an appeals court ruling in favor of the state. It seems that Nehemiah made multiple threats to the cops and others while he was in juvenile detention, which affected the appeal court's ruling. They believe that Nehemiah posed a risk to the public at large. The judge deemed Nehemiah, who was 22 at the time, to be non-amenable to treatment or rehabilitation in available facilities, and she felt that he shouldn't receive treatment in an unlocked facility.
The fact that Nehemiah killed his own family reflects just how detached, callous, and brutal he was capable of being.
During this new hearing, Nehemiah's sisters addressed the court, giving emotional testimonies.
Why do I get to have a life and they don't?
No matter how much I want to hate Nehemiah, I know I can't because of my dad.
When he was given the chance to speak, Nehemiah apologized to his sisters.
I am sorry for taking our parents and our sins. You know, I wish I could take it back, but reality is that we can't. I want no retaliation. I love you guys, and I want to see the best for y'all. And whatever you may do, and I do pray for you guys to have healing the way I'm having healing.
His aunts and uncles were also present, alongside other people who supported his release from jail.
Nobody's ever shown me that kind of mercy and that kind of compassion the way you guys have. And I'm so damn grateful for you guys.
He said something to his uncle that enraged his sister.
You've basically been a second father to me. You're the father I wish I had.
You can hear his sister crying in the courtroom and then storming out. Nehemiah glances at her and then continues. He then speaks to the judge.
Even the worst of us can make progress. Even the ones that have been through hell and back can still make it.
But he couldn't convince the judge that he deserved another chance.
Even the worst of us can make progress. Even the ones that have been through hell and back can still make it.
In the end, Griego received 3 concurrent life sentences plus 7 years to run concurrently with the life sentences. Credit for the 2,476 days, 6 years, and 285 days that he had already served was granted, and he would need to spend a total of 30 years before being eligible for parole. The Supreme Court rejected Nehemiah's attorney's appeal request without providing a reason. Griego is currently being held in the Lee County Correctional Facility. Homicide detectives said it was a case that would haunt them all their lives.
As a homicide detective, I'd seen many death scenes, but this is the one I get to relive every day.
Griego's case was quite intense, unlike that of Travis O'Brien, which didn't have any victims. We are in the Volusia County Court where a 13-year-old is getting sentenced. This is Travis O'Brien, a tiny gunman who engaged in a 35-minute gunfight with Florida police deputies with the help of a female friend who was 14. Travis O'Brien, then 12, and Nicole Jackson, then 14, broke out of the Florida United Methodist Children's Home on June 1, 2021, after Jackson allegedly struck a guard with a stick. The 2 children went broken into a house on Volusia County's Enterprise Austin Road, where they found an AK-47 and a shotgun. Police deputies arrived at the scene after receiving reports of the break-in, and they were absolutely not prepared for what transpired next.
Shooting out the rear window toward my direction. Stand by.
Armed with the guns they had found, both children began to fire on the cops, forcing them to hide behind nearby trees. This horrific incident was caught on police body cams and an aerial camera on a helicopter. The deputies fired 66 shots during the roughly 35-minute standoff. Jackson tried to load a shotgun on deputies, but the police incapacitated her, putting an end to the whole situation. After noticing his partner had been struck, O'Brien exited the house while raising his arms in a gesture of surrender. Jackson was brought to the hospital after taking a hit to the chest. After being placed under arrest, O'Brien was charged with burglary, criminal mischief, and the attempted murder of a law enforcement officer.
Understanding is you want to enter a plea today to resolve everything?
A year later, on March 23, 2022, O'Brien, who was then 13 years old, made another court appearance. He entered a plea of no contest and was given a sentence that included a maximum risk assessment program and conditional release. In contrast, Jackson received a plea deal that included a 20-year prison sentence. We have all done stupid things for love, but committing a murder, that was the case of Michael Bargo.
Accordingly, it is the judgment of the law and the sentence of the court that for the premeditated murder of Seth Jackson, you, Michael Shane Bargo, were sentenced to death.
It was April 11th, 2011, and all was seemingly well in the quiet town of Ocala, Florida. However, beneath the surface of an apparently routine life, a poisonous web of relationships and brewing animosities would ultimately cause the death of Seth Jackson. Seth had recently gone through a rough breakup with Amber Wright, his girlfriend. Their relationship was surrounded by a toxic environment where rumors of infidelity fueled the fires of hatred and jealousy. Around this time, Michael Bargo, an 18-year-old whom Seth suspected to be the one Amber cheated with, grew to hate Seth deeply, erroneously believing that Seth had mistreated her. This toxic love triangle would eventually pave the way for a terrifying series of events. Despite their unsuccessful attempt to face Seth, Bargo and his accomplices devised a dark scheme to take revenge. Still mired in a web of poisonous emotion, Amber Wright emerged as a key figure in this lethal game. Bargo persuaded Amber to entice Seth to a trailer by offering an opportunity for reconciliation. Seth had no idea that accepting this offer would put him right in the middle of a fatal trap. As soon as Seth entered the trailer, a group of teens, Amber Wright, Michael Bargo, Kyle Hooper, Justin Soto, and Charlie Eli, ambushed him and began beating him, his cries for mercy falling on deaf ears. The climax of this attack was Bargo firing multiple shots at Seth, sealing his tragic fate. One of the conspirators in the murder, Kyle Hooper, would eventually be the one to break the silence. After hearing about Seth's disappearance in the news, he confessed to his mother, overcome with guilt and the weight of his actions. After Kyle confessed, the wheels of justice started turning, and the police quickly arrested Seth's murderers. The remains of a fire pit disclosed the terrible fate that befell Seth's body. With the crime scene recounting a graphic story of brutality and bloodshed, Charlie Eli, Justin Soto, Michael Bargo, and Amber Wright were tried separately as adults. The prosecution skillfully laid out the terrifying specifics of the crime in a compelling argument. After determining that Michael Bargo was the primary perpetrator of the crime, the jury recommended the death penalty, which the judge adopted.
Accordingly, it is the judgment of the law and the sentence of the court that for the premeditated murder of Seth Jackson, you, Michael Shane Bargo, are sentenced to death.
The other defendants received life sentences for their roles in Seth's murder.